Welcome to news for Monday, May 19, 2014. I'm Jimmy Prince with the details. Plant protection and the quarantine officials here are quelling fears that all may not be well between traders of this country and quarantine officials in Trinidad and Tobago. In an exclusive interview with SVG-TV News, head of the Plant Protection and the Quarantine Unit, Marcus Richards, and his counterpart, Michael Delpesh, recounted their trip to the Twin Island Republic earlier this month. Both officials say they were able to observe firsthand the quarantine process in the Trinidad and Tobago following sightings of the pink mealybug on produce from this country. So Nicholas tells us more of the findings in this report.
The Trinidadian traders, money makers now, want to cut off bananas from St. Vincent and Grenadines. Say so, and don't use the Ministry of Agriculture and St. Vincent and Grenadines pest problem as it. So now that Trinidad has received the concern, and Trinidad is saying, no, your inspection system failed. But I don't think the Ministry of Agriculture should have just accepted it. We need to challenge it.
Weeks after former Chief Agricultural Officer Fillmore Isaacs spoke of his theory on the rejection of at least 2 shipments of bananas and plantains from SVG, 2 members of the local Plant Protection and Quarantine Unit are making it clear that the Twin Island Republic in no way seems to wish to sever trading ties with SVG. According to Michael Delpesh, Agricultural Officer and Supervisor at the Plant Protection and Quarantine Unit, on his visit to Trinidad and through his interaction with the officials there, he did not get the impression that they were targeting SVG traders. He said, in fact, there is a high demand for produce from St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
We did see live mealybugs, so it was not something that the Trinidad authorities were making up, to be fair to them. No one wants to have a pest in their country, and we respect that.
Head of the Plant Protection and Quarantine Unit, Marcus Richards, told SVG-TV News that Trinidad and Tobago accounts for 50 to 60% of the regional trade done by SVG. He said while he respects his former chief's opinion, it was premature to draw such a conclusion.
I know Mr. Isaacs, he has been our chief for a very long time, and we respect his opinion greatly. But as I said, we would not like to know that that is a situation that the Trinidadians would take on board in order to restrict trade, because that would go against all our phytosanitary agreements, both regionally and globally.
Richards further pointed out through meetings with the Trinidadian officials, it was highlighted that a zero-tolerance approach was taken by TNT to reject produce that had mealybug sighting.
The concern with the mealybug problem was not just simply a situation with St. Vincent. Apparently what happened, they would have been picking up some according to the description, very strange green-looking mealybugs, which they got very concerned about from other shipments. So it was a blanket decision that was taken for zero tolerance throughout.
The Plant Protection and Quarantine head said since their visit, all fruits in the last shipments to Trinidad and Tobago were cleared. Plant Protection and Quarantine Supervisor Michael Delpesh added that the Trinidadian authorities are doing intense inspection of produce as to halt the importation of pests and diseases into the country.
For instance, in one occasion, you had up to 80-something boxes were searched before they release that consignment of banana. So they are very thorough in their search. And when we were there, we had the opportunity to observe what was taking place at the port. And for that week, we only had 3 consignments being rejected because of mealybug. And when we say mealybug, we are not speaking specifically to the pink mealybug. There are other mealybugs involved.
Officials in the Ministry of Agriculture say they are continuing their efforts in educating farmers on the issue. For SVG-TV News, I am Zulika Lewis.
A fundamental principle for the cocoa producers cooperative here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is that the cocoa industry must be owned by the farmers who produce the crop. COPCO's interim president, Oscar Allen, expressed those views at the inaugural meeting of the cooperative on Saturday at French's house. Allen says, looking back at the progress over the years in agriculture, the industry has not been owned by the people who produce the crops. He said that this is what COPCO would like to see changed.
And so when there were gains to be made, financial gains, they didn't necessarily come to the farmers. And we're saying we must break new ground. That in the cocoa industry, those who produce the cocoa should take it to another level. It's to sell, to manufacture, to distribute, and to brand it. So wherever St. Vincent cocoa and chocolate and cocoa butter and cocoa powder and all the other products are distributed, the farmers get the benefit.
Allen expressed his disappointment with the low membership of the organization and says he's almost certain if the cooperative was a credit facility, more persons would be interested in it.
COPCO is saying to us, let's go down ourselves, build the organization, strengthen it, look for support, and build ourselves. And so we've had a struggle to get members. I don't altogether blame the farmers, because as one of our leading members, Brian Andrews, always tells me, we let them down. We brought them together in meetings in 6 communities, and we have never maintained contact with them over the year. Got back to them, went back to meetings. We just didn't have the resources.
Meantime, the president of COPCO commended the SVG Cocoa Company for what he calls effective work in getting farmers to plant cocoa.
And they are well resourced. They have resources to do that. And so it becomes easier for farmers to buy into that. But the two agencies and the two principles are different, and we hope that in time farmers will understand the difference and make an informed decision where they want to go.
Some fiscal news now. This country's economy is in a much better position for the period January 1st to April 30th, 2014 when compared to the corresponding period in 2013. This was pointed out by Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves at today's media conference. Dr. Gonsalves says the current balance is that should be 12.9 million EC dollars compared to minus 14.8 million in 2013. Let's read that again. Now the current balance is 12.9 million EC dollars compared to minus 14.8 million last year. And the overall deficit for this year so far is 4.4 million EC dollars compared to 21.8 million last year.
Total revenue and grants for the period end of April is $174.86 million compared to $147.9 for last year for the same 4 months. Current revenue $174.4 million compared to $144.9 million. Total expenditure $179.3 million compared to $169.7. Recurrent expenditure $161.5 million compared to $159.8 million last year. And capital expenditure is this year for the first 4 months $17.7 million compared to $9.9 last year.
Also at today's media conference, Prime Minister Gonsalves revealed that he had surgery during his recent trip to England. Dr. Gonzalez explained that he felt some discomfort in an area where he previously had surgery in Barbados 2 years ago while making his way to the Middle East. Following that surgery, Dr. Gonzalez said that he was advised by his doctor that he will need another procedure to fully remove the abscess, but that it was not necessary to have the procedure done right away.
When I went to England, I felt the niggling the sensation, and I went to an appropriate specialist who diagnosed and said, well, basically what the doctor in Barbados, who's a good man, had said. And he said, would you like me to do the procedure while you're here in England? I said, of course. And he asked me to come in on a Saturday around midday. You'll do it and spend the night in the hospital.
Well, the Carnival resort developers set their differences aside, making way for the forward movement of development on the island. That's for plans for hotel and marina. More stories on that when we come back. Welcome back. Carnival developers have been able to put their differences aside, making way for the completion of development work on the Carnival Resort and Marina. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonzalez told members of the media that during his recent trip to England, he met with the relevant parties involved in an attempt to have them put their differences aside. Well, it's a good thing that the relevant systems are in place at the construction site at the Argyle International Airport so that errors could be corrected in quick time. That's according to Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, who was at the time responding to a story that appeared in one of the weekend papers. The article indicated that the runway base at the Argyle International Airport, currently under construction, had failed.
What is important, what should give everybody in this country faith and comfort that is a quality work being done, is that the Quality Assurance Unit picks it up. No, they could have gone there and in 5 years' time you have to dig out that part to do over. Say no, it didn't mean.
Carnival Beat up next. Stay with us. In Carnival Beat this evening, we hear that despite outlining a new tax measure in his budget address in 2013 on alcoholic beverages so that the government can better assist in the funding of Carnival, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonzalez stated that the revenue collected has not been sufficient to facilitate this. During his 2013 presentation, Dr. Gonzalez said that the annual cost of Carnival now exceeded $2.7 million EC, with $1.2 million EC being contributed by the National Lottery and additional $1.5 million being provided by central government. At that time, he said the government will have to raise more money to inject into the national festival.
You see, fellas assume that all the excise duties you collect should go to CDC. We're only talking about the increase. Well, let us look at what the numbers say. In 2013, up to the end of April, we collected $6.2 million in excise duties on international trade. Okay? This year, up to the end of April, we collect $5.6 million. It fell. None of this money was given to the CDC for the simple reason that there's not an excess here to give to them. But what we have done, we have in our budget is $400 and something thousand.
Meanwhile, there is said to be a need for this country's premier national festival, Vincy Mas, to undergo some serious reconstruction. This point was made by one songwriter and performer, Chanel Mackenzie, on Sunday's Hit Talk program, looking at Carnival and the Carnival Development Corporation. Mackenzie says it must be acknowledged that there is a need now for an injection of cash that will help with the refreshing of the festival, including its official launch.
In 2001, when they went to Unity Square, I think that's when we had a big shake-up of the CDC, and, you know, they were asked to do something better. Then in 2002, I believe we moved to the car park, and things just took a generic structure after that. So it's been the same thing since then. So that in itself, from the launch, come right down, needs some serious new ideas, new way of doing things. We see where in other islands, Carnival is a big thing. To Trinidad, one of the major income earners, not for private people only, but for the government as well. But government injects money into Carnival in these islands, and I think this is where it all has to start.
Entertainer and the president of AMP, Bumani Charles, says it is imperative that the CDC recognizes that Carnival has reached a critical point in relation to its relevance to today's generation.
How this new generation view culture as presented in Carnival, how they accept it, how it's marketed to them, and important questions are to be asked as to whether or not the Carnival Development Corporation is recognizing this new dispensation in their approach to marketing Carnival.
Tonight on Carnival Beat, we get to learn a bit more about contestant number 8 in this year's Miss SVG pageant, Jamila Neverson, Miss Lotto. We get more in this report by Jamisha Wright.
Wearing the sash of Miss Lotto in this year's Miss SVG pageant is 23-year-old Jamila Neverson. As the date draws closer to the staging of the pageant, scheduled for May 31st, Neverson is busy fine-tuning plans for the big night. Recently, SVG-TV caught up with Neverson at home, where she was seen putting in work to get that ideal body for the competition.
Tell us a little bit about what you do for relaxation, hobbies. What do you do outside of work and training for Miss SVG now that you're into the pageant?
Well, I love spending time with my family. That's one of my favorites. It helps me to relax, especially my nieces and my nephews. They just bring joy to me. When I'm sad, I go there and I share. So with my family, relaxing on the beach is really nice as well. Shopping, I love shopping.
All fashion.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you into sports?
Not so that I'm in it, but when I was in primary school, I was in track and field and also netball.
Are you very useful around the house, resourceful around the house?
I am.
You are. What do you do?
I would cook sometimes. I help washing and cleaning, washing the dishes, tidying up the house. Basically, that's it. Especially around Christmas time and springtime. That is the time that my aunt meets me, so I'm in there with her to help.
Okay. Do you cook? Do you like cooking?
Well, I love my tummy, so
yeah. It doesn't look that way.
That has to be fit for Miss SVG. So,
what do you like to cook? What's your favorite dish? What do you prepare best?
My favorite dish is cattle skin with green pea soup.
Sounds good.
Yes, with dumpling. I don't really like coconut dumpling or dumpling with other ingredients in it. I just like my dumpling.
Are you into the animals? Do you feed them, or do you take care of the animals or take care of the yard?
Well, most of the time, or sometimes. I love animals, especially puppies. I adore puppies, especially if they're cute and fluffy. I just want to play with them. And there's one in my yard, his name is Sammy. He's not really a puppy, but he's very sweet.
I notice you have rabbits and stuff. Do you feed the rabbits?
I do not.
You do? Well, you're going to feed them today.
No problem.
Okay, your training on the whole, how things have been. Tell us, you lost some weight.
I did.
How much did you lose since you started training for Miss SVG? Where are you now, and where were you when you started training for Miss SVG?
Well, I was approximately 140 something. I can't remember the exact. And now I would be around 120.
So you lost approximately, at least 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Join us tomorrow evening during Carnival Beat for a one-on-one with contestant number 6, Vanica Hope, Miss Super 6. Jamisha Wright reporting for Carnival Beat.